The unhappiest people in this world are those who care the most about what other people think. Most of us fail in life because we're afraid of what everyone around you is thinking about you. I learned it late and the hard way, but you cannot care what anybody thinks about you. If I cared about what people thought about me while speaking to this camera, exposing myself to the entire internet, I would probably not be doing this. You have this crazy idea about creating an app that could help people lose weight. Or you've always had the dream of going on a trip around the world and explore cultures. You're so excited and full of adrenaline and dopamine that you run to your best friend or peer to tell them all about it. After about 30 seconds, they look at you and said, "Dude, you don't even have money." Or you don't have what it takes. Your dream is crushed. You are being judged. Most likely you stop pursuing it. Next time you have another vision, you won't even bring it up, nor pursue it, because you think back to that particular moment and negative feelings come up. We post only the best pictures out of 27 selfies we took and add a flattering filter to get the most likes to prove to ourselves that we're pretty and likable. We live in other people's heads. For the longest time, I had the biggest fear on how I was being perceived. Everything from the way I walked, talked, and behaved. Crazy visions were shut down. Lofty goals were simply thrown away. I was painfully insecure, and everyone's opinion mattered more than mine, and I constantly second-guessed myself. The truth is, other people's opinions of us are none of your business. Their opinions have nothing to do with us and everything to do with them, their past, their judgments, their expectations, their likes and their dislikes. It wasn't a problem that I wasn't taken seriously, but rather that I started believing them, which had a huge impact on the way I felt inside of me going forward from that time on. That obviously caused extreme self-doubt and lack of confidence. So how did I dig myself out of a hole, and how did it all change? Quick disclaimer, I'm not a psychologist and this is purely my own experience. I'll show you the exact steps that helped me achieve a ton of freedom, emotional stability, self-confidence, and most importantly, I was able to overcome this unpleasant feeling. And as a result, I received this insanely great, liberating state of happiness. I won't tell you superficial nonsense like simply ignore people. I'll share in depth how to tackle the deep underlying issues so you can reinvent yourself that will last a lifetime. Let's talk about number one. You got to figure out your root cause. The mind is a programmable, ghost-driving machine, and most people aren't aware of why they're feeling and behaving the way they are. The code that needs to be implemented to make that change, or who wrote that code that created low self-esteem in the first place. Us humans, we're social animals. We're wired to think about our role in the group and how others think of us. It's a kind of belonging mechanism. These are defined as natural motivation to form and maintain bonds with others. So, in other words, belonging is an intrinsic motivation to affiliate with others and be socially accepted. So, number one, dig into your childhood, and perhaps you were judged about a failed exam one day, or you bunked a presentation and people made fun of you. You most likely carry the same emotion in yourself, and every time you're being judged now, you feel the same way. This is called the cognitive emotional loop. It basically means that there is a repeating pattern where your thoughts and beliefs produce feelings that fuel the same thoughts and beliefs. You can only break this loop by understanding the root cause. Become self-aware, accept yourself when you're in that loop, acknowledge it, and most importantly, use your logic in that very moment. Ask yourself, is it true that I'm not being valued? And you gotta figure out your own very unique trigger, because it's different for everybody. Without knowing the trigger, nothing else matters. Again, when you understand the trigger, you understand the root cause of that unresolved emotion from the past. Let's talk about number two. Stop chasing approvals. Most babies come out of the womb crying because survival instincts kick in needing food and comfort, and this obviously continues throughout life. Their only way to communicate and drawing attention is crying. In a way, seeking approval or validation from others is an internal cry to become the center of attention. show off, and say and do things so that people might like you. Ironically, the effect is the exact opposite. Most of the time, people find it obnoxious and will probably not like you. When you seek approval, you need to have everyone approve of you, tell you you're doing a good job, agree with you, and more. But this makes you needy and insecure. That's one of the biggest reasons why what we're seeing with upcoming children, they're being praised so many times that this will cause this exact problem in the long term. Also, when you don't get the approval you want, you'll feel hurt because your self-worth is based on others. Care about what other people think, and you will always be their prisoner. This goes back to working on your self-esteem. A definition for self-esteem is it's the confidence in one's own self-worth or abilities and self-respect. We could probably spend an entire day talking about self-worth and how you're really feeling inside, but the truth is that deep inside you feel very little. Therefore, you need to consistently seek approvals in various forms. Just like this YouTube video, there will be a lot of people that might hate the way I look, the way I speak, and others hopefully will like and love it. Some think I'm a fool, and others will love what I have to say. I have stopped seeking approval a long time ago. Fundamentally, I know my own values now. Knowing your core values is like using your full beam headlights on your car when you drive on an empty road at night. So let's replace that headlight with achieving a higher consciousness. You will be able to think clearer and more in depth. I came to realize that my core value is compassion and courage. That means that if I receive negative feedback about something, I won't react to it because I'm putting myself in the other person's shoes. And I would quickly realize and analyze where the origin of that statement comes from. So an example would be you tell someone who has never done a marathon or is not even sporty that you want to finish one this year. He will most likely discourage you because you remind him perhaps on his own dreams, and since he self-doubts himself, he won't encourage you either. So what I encourage you to do is find your core value and use it in all these situations that you encounter with people. Let's talk about number 3, zoom out big time. An entirely new perspective that has really shaped me around this topic, and this might be a bit of a harsh reality, but I'll say it anyway because it's the truth in my opinion. In 3 generations or even before that, everyone who knew us would no longer be here, including the people who stopped you from doing what you wanted all along. So imagine for a second, 100 years from now, how insignificant is it going to be that you felt judged yesterday? Does it really matter to you or the other person? So whatever you set out to do, whatever you wanted to wear or say in a specific moment, do it for yourself. So by zooming out and calming your mind, you started realizing that what the people who are judging you have done better is they have simply hit their inner world very well. What that means is these people carry their own issues and project it on you in that way. Let's talk about number 4, expectations. I've seen this so many times in young people earlier in their careers, and I have certainly been there as well. As they navigate through the dark and disorienting maze of career options and self-actualizations, they feel haunted by their parents' expectations, teachers, coaches, and peers. The best question there is, I'm being ironic, who will you become? I think you can't really become a painter. So in other words, if I never had a single interest in paintings or art, and I just buy a brush and some paint, I'm a painter now? This whole concept around you need to chase something to be someone is a process to achieve a goal that was injected in your mind to conform with society ever since you were a child. Go become a doctor, a lawyer, and climb the ladder because that's where you will find happiness. You're at point A and you need to be at point B. Well, the opposite is quite true. Most people live a very monotonous life without questioning their existence, core beliefs, and have a ton of excuses, justifications, and identifications about why life turned out the way it has. You are the architect of your own life. Go to school, get a job, retire at 67 with a lousy pension, drowning in debt, and barely affording the rising cost of living. What most people forget is that the decades of grinding a job that you never liked to begin with will make your health suffer. Thus, you won't even have the health required to go on that sailboat endeavor in the Mediterranean Sea or that backpacking trip in the Alps. In other words, there's a negative opportunity cost that most people simply do not see. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with being a doctor or joining the family business. I think those are amazing endeavors. The key to that is it's your choice and it's something you want to truly pursue, then there's nothing wrong with that. The benefits of the approval flowing from those safe and respectable options can turn out to be shallow and counterproductive for your life. Translating this over to your fear of being judged, if you have realized you're stuck in the wrong career and instead you want to be a writer, for instance, you will most likely encounter others that won't share the same excitement with you. That's fact. It's a waste of time to speculate why that may be, whether they're envious or impose their limited beliefs on you, but just know that your soul is talking through feelings. So if you feel like there's a different path, then pursue it. That's your evidence. At the end of the day, if you set out to achieve a goal or you have a dream and people shut them down, in essence, that means that you never believed in it in the first place. Let that sink in. You need to believe in your vision so strongly that you cannot be swayed otherwise. Check out my video about how 95% fail to stick to their New Year's resolutions. I'm referring to really defining your why and why it's so crucial to change your identity around your vision. You need to become a different person to achieve it. If you want to finish that marathon, ask yourself why that's important to you in the first place. Is it the fitness aspect, the adventure, or simply challenging your mind to do something that you're afraid of? Once you become very clear about your deeper why, what's most important to you, the result is that your conviction around that topic is so strong that nobody is able to distract or question you. It's your anchor, your foundation. It serves as a pillar for you. So let me share a personal story that will illustrate how strong my pillar was back in 2013. I remember vividly, I was in the process of relocating to the US and told one of my coworkers in Germany about my plan moving over there. Be with my girlfriend, get a job, and move into an apartment. I didn't have much money at the time, so she knew I didn't have much time before I would eventually run out of money. So she said, I think you'll be back here in Germany in the summer. So this stuck with me for a long time. There was simply no evidence at all that I would be back, right? It was mere disbelief, perhaps jealousy, or she was imposing her self-imposed limits on me. Obviously, I went there regardless, and for the longest, I wanted to understand what drove me to shut these negative comments down. And you'll find out today. You have to decide what your highest priorities are and have the courage pleasantly, smilingly, unapologetically to say no to other things. And the way to do that is by having the bigger yes burning inside of you. Once you stop caring, you will become very dangerous, unstoppable, unlimited. So back to my example, my pillar and my vision to be in the US, to live here, to get a job and get married eventually was so strong that outside perspective, outside feedback did not hinder me from getting on that plane and pursuing what I always felt like I could. So in other words, I was able to overcome a self-doubt that was imposed on me. Let's talk about point number 5. We live in a society where oftentimes we cannot talk about how we feel. Even though, in my opinion, I think vulnerability is more and more accepted, even in the corporate world, there's still the notion that speaking about your feelings is considered a weakness. It turns out we all experience the same feelings and we all make mistakes. That's just fact. Even if you have figured it all out in a lot of ways and areas in life, you do make mistakes. Back to compassion. Start accepting the fact that every single human being on earth has failed at some point in their lives. All you can do is learn from it. If you finance, for instance, a car and you get the first payment at home and you realize, OMG, the payment is way too high, go get a second job, pay it off, and take the lesson with you. Oftentimes, we do the best we can with the mind and experience at that time. Think about it. If nobody taught you how to do X, you have to go out and experience it for yourself. You might fail, which is totally normal, but during that failure, you will have discovered a solution which prevents you from failing in the future. You aren't afraid of failure, but rather what other people may think if you fail. What's worse is what they may think of you if you don't even try. So if you think you're worrying too much about how you're being perceived by others, join the club. I've been there. See it as a gift. Why gift? It's because changing your thinking, releasing binaries, and all or nothing thinking, and making peace with paradox allows your life to flourish. Another thing that I would like to mention is be very cognitive around constructive criticism and don't misjudge it as negative feedback. So if someone who runs a very successful business tells you your business idea sucks, better believe it. He doesn't shut you down as an individual and probably stoked that you're working on a business idea and you want to pursue that entrepreneurship route. He simply wants to help you prevent getting into a failed business right from the beginning. So accept positive criticism. Keep in mind though that you're likely judging yourself harder than anyone else, and that some of these judgments are only being created in your head based on a feeling from the past that has no application anymore. So let's sum it up. Firstly, the fear to be judged is entirely normal. Figure out the root cause and work on becoming more conscious around feelings and emotions. Go through the fear. That's the only way to get out of it. If you're afraid of judgments when speaking in public, for instance, all you need to do is prepare and force yourself to be practicing speaking in public. This is how I trained my brain muscle back then, because I had the exact same issue. Lastly, there's a reason why so many videos talk about operate in silence and simply don't talk about your goals and dreams unless you know 100% that that person will support you along that way. What most people don't realize is that we received a dopamine rush by announcing our goals to the public. So keep it to yourself. Finding yourself is not really how it works. You aren't a $10 bill in last winter's coat pocket. You're also not lost. Your true self is right there, buried under cultural conditioning, other people's opinions, and inaccurate conclusions you drew as a kid that became your beliefs about who you are. Finding yourself is actually returning to yourself, an unlearning, an excavation, a remembering who you were before the world got its hand on you. I hope this video helps you, and I wish you all the best on your healing journey. Your Christian.